Well, for the second provincial election in a row, there will be no English language leaders debate. For many voters, that's raising serious questions about inclusion and democratic participation in Quebec. Now, a bit of background. A consortium of English language media invited every major party leader to participate in an English debate. While Quebec Solidaire and the Conservative Party accepted, the CAQ, the Parti Québécois, and ultimately the Quebec Liberals declined, leaving Anglophone voters without a dedicated leaders debate once again. Why does it matter? Well, democracy depends on informed voters. Debates remain one of the few opportunities for citizens to compare leaders directly.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie, it wasn't so very long ago that the leader of the CAQ and current premier, Christine Frechette, told CJAD, I believe it was, here in Montreal, that she wanted to strike a much more positive tone or softer tone with Anglophones in Quebec.
Indeed.
And this was after, up to that point, she had not given a news conference or spoken any English in any news conferences that she had given. So she comes into the English language radio station, talk show, says, I want to strike a much better tone with Anglophones in Quebec.
And all of these.
Then, nope, we're not going to take part in the English leaders debate. I don't get it. Now, I wasn't here for the last election, and the fact that Legault just point blankly drew a line in the sand and said, no way, I'm out. See ya. I don't know what kind of feedback there was at that point in time. You were on the ground. Did you feel slighted?
I felt slighted there, and then I did feel very slighted as an Anglophone. The Parti Québécois they've always been anti-Anglo. Then the CAQ, I mean, a lot of their policies and modifications to language laws, you can see that they're focusing on the French language. And I'm not saying there's any wrong to that, but it's just complete 100% focus on the French language, ignoring everything else. And then typically, what the Anglophone community and the Allophone community here use as can look at not a protest vote, but actually to be able to have their voices heard, would typically vote for the Liberal Party of Quebec. And even Charles Millard basically at the end of the day said, no, we're not going to do a debate in French. That one really surprised me, because typically the Liberals were for having English debates, but for this particular upcoming election, the Liberal leader Millard basically said, no, we're not going to be doing that. The only thing I can think of is French is the core language that's spoken here in Quebec, and that's the only language we're going to be speaking to our constituents. Look, Gary, I'm going to watch the French debate. Not a problem for me. But that's not the point, is it?
No.
Is it political suicide not to involve the other 25% of the population and get them to understand what you're going to be doing for them in their vote? You would think yes. Or are they at a point they just don't care anymore? That's what scares me the most. I feel more slighted now than I did than I did in the last election when the CAQ leader says, no, I don't want to have anything to do with it at all. I thought we had an olive branch being laid out by Frechette, and obviously she pulled it away as quickly she handed it out. But my biggest disappointment is in Charles Millard of the Parti Libéral Québec, for not fighting for the other 25% of the population here. More so now, myself, I'm disappointed than the last time. I just don't get it. What about yourself, Gary? As becoming a Quebecer here and moving here 4 or 5 years ago, How do you feel about this? I know you've been working hard and trying to learn French. How do you feel about this
I'm
yourself?
pissed.
Yeah.
I'm totally pissed. I understand trying to protect your culture, and it's a great tourism promotion as well to have that Canada's most European city,
Hmm.
right? In Montreal, in protecting the language and the culture. But as I've always said, it doesn't matter if you're talking Quebec's French culture, New Brunswick's English culture, um, you name the culture. The fact of the matter is, you can't legislate culture. Culture comes from here,
Hmm.
in here, but here. You don't. It doesn't come from legislation. And eventually, as much as a lot of these Quebec politicians dismiss the fact that, oh no, we're going to do just fine. Your little walls are going to come crumbling down, and you'll be in for another wake up shock at some point, because the rest of the country is really becoming more and more fed up with a lot of foolishness, and foolishness like this. This country went bilingual at great expense, I might add, at great expense to English language businesses serving the vast majority of residents, citizens of the country who spoke English. At great expense. And the federal government has kept up the charade ever since. And now, in certain areas, like in New Brunswick, they're in areas of New Brunswick where English is the basic language. Some of the jobs, the federal jobs, are being designated bilingual. You must be bilingual. Now, up to that point, bilingual people were being hired, but the positions weren't necessarily designated bilingual. And some of the positions, from what I've heard, they're like people are scratching their heads. But why do we have a bilingual country when in Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan, how big is your French populations there? How big is the French population in British Columbia? Not very, I can tell you that. They're far outnumbered by a number of other languages, especially when you get into Vancouver. And that's what
Hmm.
makes cities like Toronto and Vancouver and Montreal, because we do have our Chinatowns and Little Italy and things like that. But here you are, you're demanding everything, and have been from the get-go as far as bilingualism in the country is concerned. And yet, in your own home province, you turn around and you thumb your nose at English-speaking people. You thumb your nose. And yet, we do represent a significant portion of population. And you know what I'm
We
hoping,
do.
Eddie? I am
But
hoping that in this election, there are a host of ridings that are so close that every vote is going to count. And I hope
hmm.
that English people sense that, and they find a way to send a message, especially to the
Yeah.
CAQ and the PQ.
Yeah, well, that I agree with you, Gary. I think 25% of the population. I'm just, you know, let's assume it's the voting population as well. Um, I, like, who am I going to vote for now? I mean, obviously, I'm going to get an idea from the French debate because I understand French. Um, but who are the other candidates? Am I going to vote for the Conservative Party of Quebec because of this? The liberal candidate really pissed me off, which is my typical go-to. But this individual just pissed me off because he just shunned me, and the other 25% of the population here in Quebec. He refused to do an English debate. So what's the alternative? A protest vote. You know what, Gary? It could very well be that the protest votes might have a significant say in terms of who the next premier of Quebec is going to be.
That's right.
And I am so pissed. I don't want any of these three running the government here in Quebec. I am that pissed, and I've never been able to say that. All running major parties in Quebec, I don't want to vote for you. It's the first time I'm feeling like that. So I really I shame on you, Mr. Millard. I am really pissed at you. Frechette and Plamondon, I didn't expect anything less, but the leader of the Liberal Party is a tactical error on his part for sure. So I hope you're right. Look, I mean, there's a significant Anglophone and Allophone community here in Montreal, a huge English population here. And you know what? In the eastern townships of Quebec, major English enclaves and populations. I really hope that those votes are going to make a significant difference and punch somebody in the nose, seriously speaking. And I don't know what else to say, Gary. I'm just I'm very slighted by this, and I can see that Ian is pretty pissed himself.
Yes,
Yeah.
he is. And just putting up his comments.
Hmm.
Well said. So, uh, Eddie, how much faith can you put in anything Frechette says now?
Uh, you know what? I put her in the same boat as her predecessor. I didn't
Yeah,
like him one bit. Smug, arrogant, uh, asshole. I'm sorry, but absolute arrogant asshole. And you know what? When she first came out in both the French media, and she finally made a finally came into public with the English media and said she's going to work very hard and work close with the English community to reach across and understand your concerns and whatnot. I thought maybe there was some hope for the Anglophone population in Quebec. But with this snub of the English language debate, you know what? No, she's from the same cloth as her predecessor. So no, definitely not somebody I would certainly not vote for her, and I really hope that the majority of people feel the same way and say, nope, not going to happen. But again, their representation is not typically Montreal centric. It's pretty much in the regions, right? So, I mean, that's where the PQ and the CAC hold their power is up into regions with less population, but that's the way the electorates are set up here in the districts, right? The voting districts.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, if I had a choice, no freaking way. Not gonna get my vote.
Yes, it's going to be tough for me to go to the polling station and hold my
Yeah.
nose. But I'm going to try and figure out a way to send a message. And I could very well end up like with a protest vote of some sort. I'm not sure how or who yet, but I'll be watching very, very carefully,
Hmm.
because this is just. Can you imagine? Can you imagine in New Brunswick, which is Canada's only official bilingual province?
Hmm.
Can you imagine during a provincial election campaign if CBC and L'Acadie Nouvelle and a couple of the others said, we want to put together a French leaders debate?
Hmm.
And the English speaking leaders said, no, we're out. Can you imagine the
Or vice
hollering and the
versa.
crying? And I would
Or vice
suggest that,
versa. Yeah.
yeah, I would suggest, Eddie, that the crying and hollering, the largest portion of it would come from right here in Quebec.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know,
Oh,
you
that's right.
can't have your cake and eat it too. We English speaking people in this province are contributing, and you can't shut them out because a lot of the economy depends on companies that are basically 100% English speaking outside of the province, but they are trying to work and work in the French cultural aspect within their offices under the guys, of the threat of the language police, which when you see the budget that organization has to run around and hassle small business owners and write a few letters every now and again. And I believe the budget went up this year.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That money could be spent on making programs available to English people learning to speak French, because you know what? I tried the provincial program, and at the time they were doing it on Zoom. I don't know what they're doing it on now. And I couldn't take it. First of all, I wasn't learning anything, because the teacher I had spoke Spanish to a number of Spanish people more than it seemed we were speaking French. And secondly, people still, after how many years now since the pandemic? 6, 5? They still have not learned how to mute themselves on Zoom. So while she's trying to, and especially when you're taking a language course, you have to hear every word, right?
Right.
And you've got all of this other distraction going on in the background. Like, there was one day I thought my head was going to explode, just the sounds, and that's it. I'm not learning anything here.
Yeah.
I'll try something else. And, I want to be able to carry on a very basic conversation, if nothing else, in French.
Right.
I really do. But man, oh man, the stubborn Irish ancestry and Scottish ancestry that I have in me kind of gets the back up when I see crap like this.
Yeah. Gary, let me ask you. So here we have the leader of the three principal parties in Quebec. What harm could it have possibly done to either of those three to have an English debate?
Zero.
What harm could it have caused? They're not going to lose their ridings up in rural Quebec where they hold power. That's not going to change their votes there. You're looking at metropolitan areas of Montreal and surrounding areas, and even Quebec City, which goes red from time to time. What would it have hurt them to do this in English? I don't see it would hurt their base. That's never going to go away. B, anybody that wants to support these parties would not, I don't think, would have had an issue if their leader spoke English. And three, Gary, think about the coverage, the media coverage to the rest of the country that are getting news as a result of a summary for the debate. Oh, last night's English language debate in Quebec, a first in years. That would bode very well in terms of their profile with the rest of Canada, who are already pissed at Quebec for a number of reasons. And four, what about from an international perspective, international community-wise? International investment of people are looking at what's going on in Quebec. Oh, an English language debate. Maybe there's hope after all. Maybe we can go back to Quebec and open up businesses. No,
Exactly.
they decide, oh, we're not going to do this because that's the way it is, and that's the way I'm going to do it. And it's just so, you know what I call this? Freaking immature. This is an immature decision by the three principal leaders of our political parties and our system here in Quebec. An absolute failure. I'm sorry to say, they pulled a Trump. Literally just pouting, no, we're going to speak French, and that's the end of that. Total loss, childish, lost opportunity for the province. You know what I'm pissed off too? I'm pissed off that the province of Quebec is going to lose out because of a stupid decision. A decision that's specific to the election. They're not thinking after the election. What are we going to do in terms of our credibility after the election? They did not think about this at all. I'm just pissed in so many different levels, Gary. I can't even start, but yeah,
But you
it's
bring
a
up some
shame. It's
good
a damn
points.
shame.
You bring up some good points about businesses outside of Quebec that are trying to decide, do we enter that market, or is it? And they see something like this where, okay, well, I don't want to get involved with all of the hassle and the paperwork and the language police and everything else that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't see, they're not going to debate in English. So I don't see any sort of moderating of any sort of positions that they have that makes it attractive for me to start spending money in Quebec to build my business there or expand into Quebec.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt. So anyway, I think that there should be a law that says every major provincial election includes debates in both official languages. Yes, Quebec, both official languages in this country, French and
Yeah.
English, because the last time I checked, 20 minutes ago, we were still part of Canada.
Hmm.
So think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, Eddie, our takeaway on this one?
Let me catch my breath. Our takeaway, Gary and ladies and gentlemen, if political leaders won't debate before all major communities, who loses? The politicians or the voters?